Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Yep. That's one person. That's great. We've still got a few more people filtering in, but we're going to get going just because we're on quite a tight time schedule. Welcome to the Cambridge Zero Postgraduate Academy launch event. Ooh, no, never mind. Don't worry. Thank you. It's fantastic that you're all here. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about what the Cambridge Zero Postgraduate Academy is in a little bit, because I know that's what you're all wondering. But before we get going, we're going to be welcomed or introduced by the esteemed Dr. Emily Shackborough, Director of Cambridge Zero herself, who's going to talk to us about why you should all be excited about getting involved in Cambridge Zero over the next few months. Thank you very much. Would you like this, or I can give you an actual microphone? What would you prefer?
Can I do a roving microphone?
You can do a roving microphone.
Oh, that's exciting. Yes, it is. Hello, can you hear me? Yes, perfect. I am really excited that this postgraduate academy is launching. So Cambridge Zero itself is now just over 2 years old, and it's a really unique initiative that it aims to literally bring all of the university's resources together, all with a singular mission of supporting a climate-resilient, zero-carbon world. And so our activities span the research side of the university, education, all our external engagements, whether that's with business and industry, or whether it's with policy or inspiring entrepreneurship. We just had our Carbon Challenge competition finals earlier this week. Whether it's about public engagement, or whether it's about the university itself and looking to decarbonise and create a more sustainable university across all the activities of the university itself. So that's Cambridge Zero. And the first 2 years of Cambridge Zero's existence have been largely in the pandemic period. And so we've been much slower at actually being able to do events like this, where we start to get people together in person and really start to create a movement, more than just an institution, but a movement of people all working towards that same ultimate ambition. We really wanted to do something particularly for all those graduate students who are either studying for master's courses related in some way to climate change, or who are undertaking research that is related in some way to climate change. And that's where we came up with the idea of launching the Postgraduate Academy. We really wanted it to be a student-led initiative, so we are absolutely delighted that Sam and the rest of the committee have got involved, and we're going to hear all their exciting ideas as to what the Postgraduate Academy could do. From the Cambridge Zero core team's perspective, we're here to support you in whatever you want to do with the Academy. And if that's about organising events, we're here to help organise those events with you. If it's about training activities, then we will help organise those training activities. If it's about finding you opportunities for internships, or for engagement with the media or other public engagement activities, then similarly we can help channel that. If it's about finding places for you to interact with policy or business, then similarly we can do that. So huge range of opportunities, and this is really now over to you, you as individuals, but also if there's one task that I'm going to leave you with today, it's to go away and find other people in your departments or in your colleges to be part of this academy community as well, because the more people we get involved, then the more exciting things that we can undertake, and the more impact that we can make on wider society. So, very excited, really looking forward to hearing the ideas that the committee have come up with as to the first activities that the Academy will be undertaking. I can only stay for the first half hour today. I've got to whiz off to do something else later this evening. But I will be very excited to hear what happens the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much.
Sam.
That's great. I will steal the back from you. Yes, and Emily is unbelievably busy, so we are very grateful to have her here. And I just want to reiterate one point, which is we've been working hard over the past couple of months to think about what it is that we as a committee would like to be doing for the Postgraduate Academy and for the postgraduate students of the university. But it's really going to be a collaborative process. And so we're going to be putting you to work in telling us what you want to do, what will be beneficial, and really taking your feedback into where this goes. So this is the launch event. It's going to be built with your feedback, but to hear a little bit more about what it is that the Postgraduate Academy aims to do and is going to be doing over the next kind of couple of months and couple of years, I would like to invite Deja, one of our committee members, to come up and talk about it some more. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's working. Thank you very much, Sam. A very good evening, everyone. I'm Deja, and this year I take on the role as the president of the Postgraduate Academy. And I'm very happy to welcome you all again. And first and foremost, thank you for coming, despite the weather. Yesterday it was so sunny. The day you're not having an event, it's so sunny. But then today it's rainy and gloomy. But anyways, thank you for making it in person. So building on what Emily was talking about a minute ago, so the Postgraduate Academy truly serves to create a space where we aim to bring together all students and researchers across the university, across different departments, to meet, collaborate, and discuss about solving issues pertaining to sustainability, energy, and environmental problems. So this is the vision of the Postgraduate Academy. But this is a very grand vision, which looks great on paper. But what does it mean in practice? And how does it translate into reality? And this is where the steering committee comes into play. So we are 11 postgraduate students from different departments. All of us are here. Maybe we can stand up so everyone can see. Just wave. Yeah. So we're all from different departments. We work on different things. We study different things. So the diversity in the steering committee in itself is a good representation of what the Postgraduate Academy stands for. We all do different things, but we are here together at the Postgraduate Academy because of our common interests and desires to work towards solutions pertaining to sustainability. So this is what we aim to do at a larger scale. So we aim to do this through different events, lectures, workshops, symposia, etc. And in a couple of minutes, my colleagues Sachi and Herbie will be talking more about that. But before I go into it, before I hand over to them, I also want to touch a little bit about some of the themes that we have been discussing at the committee. So one theme that came across and one theme which we really want to focus on is addressing issues about sustainability on campus, pertaining to food production and also waste management. And thinking about coming up with integrated policies that would apply universally across the university, like across all departments and across all colleges, and to see how effective that would be and or how easy or feasible it would actually be to implement it. Another theme which we were discussing about is coming up with different training and capacity building programs and having experts from across the university and also across the world to come in and help us postgraduate students to gain more skills and knowledge. Lastly, another theme is sort of like bringing an international aspect to the Postgraduate Academy. That is having speakers from across the world in terms of going and bringing speakers from marginalized communities from across the world. So I think this is really important because it really gives us a perspective about how or if the research which we are doing in the labs here at the University of Cambridge would actually translate into some ground reality, or what would be the practical outcomes of the solutions which we are discussing about in labs and publishing extensively. How and if it would translate into ground reality for these communities to address their own energy and environmental problems that they face locally. So these are just some of the themes that we have been discussing, but it's not limited to these. We are very much open to hear about what you all want to see, what type of events you all want to be organized, and also what type of speakers you all want to hear from. And more importantly, maybe if you yourself are doing some cool research, we also want you to come up and talk to us, talk to everyone, right? We are also focusing on having a lot of student-led initiatives, student-led workshops and symposia. So that is something which is very exciting, and we hope to see a lot of you take that up. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deja. That was superb. Before I welcome Sachi on stage to give you some more detail, I did say that we wanted to get your feedback and get your input, and also that I was going to put you to work. So I'm afraid we are one of those annoying groups of people that does interactive presentations. You've actually got to do something. So if I could ask you all to either go to slido.com or scan this very useful image here. It should take you to our pre-prepared thing. Everyone's got their phones up. This is very good. It won't come up with a question yet, but in a couple of minutes when we get to this slide, it will magically appear on your phone, and it's going to be very exciting. So, Sachi, are you prepared to come show us how this magic works?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
How's everyone doing? So, okay, happy to be out of the rain. Okay. All right, so thanks, Deja and Sam, and thank you for that introduction. So, as Deja mentioned, we've come up with the whole host of events that we'd like to engage you all in. For the Easter term, we're looking at some skill-building workshops, a salon-style seminar series, as well as a student symposium. So right now what I'm going to ask you to do is look at your Slido. There will be a list of workshops for you to choose from. So what we really, really want to know is which of these workshops are beneficial to you, which of these things do you want to do, and I mean, if there are other things that you want to see from us, if you want us to bring other types of workshops to you, there's an other category.
There's not another category. I had to remove it.
There's not another category. I'm sorry. But you can always come up and talk to any of us, and we're happy to kind of take down your ideas and see what we can do with those as well.
This is working very well. I'm very impressed with myself.
Okay, so writing policy briefs and graphic-based science communication. Awesome, thank you so much for that. And the next question should come up again. And this is about themes for our seminar series. And really what we're looking to do here is bring speakers from different disciplines, different contexts to talk about a particular theme. So the idea is that we'll have a theme for every term going forward. And so if there's a particular theme that you'd like to hear about, you can pick. I'm
going to ruin the magic of it by saying that this slide isn't working. So sorry, that's my fault. If you have, the idea of these seminars is that we're going to be running them termly, but with overarching themes. If I just go back and say, we've got some ideas around island nations and what it means and different things around that, or different ideas from fieldwork. If there's something specific that you want to see here, if you have a really good thematic idea for a series of workshops or seminars, come berate me afterwards, and then please tell me your good idea, and apologies again.
Great, and we're also looking to do a student symposium at the end of the term, next term, and so look out for information about all these different things, and thank you so much for your support today.
Thank you, Sachi. And to continue this excellent work, could I invite Herbie up to talk about our long-term proposals?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. So we have a few ideas for more longer-term programs. The first one is this Effective Climate Change Mitigation Discussion Group, which is actually a program which is successfully run in Michaelmas and Lent, with like a combined total of around 60 attendees. And we're thinking of bringing this in under the Cambridge Zero banner and expanding it, making it more, I guess, targeted, to really try and connect students across the university with interest in climate. Our second idea is a pairing program where we would give you a form with some research interests and try and connect people across the university from different departments with similar research interests potentially to encourage collaborations that way. The third idea is around placements and research networks. So one of the, as stated earlier by Deja, one of the core goals of the Postgraduate Academy is to really try and encourage interdisciplinary research. And one way of doing this is to try and make students more aware of opportunities for summer internships, placements, and things like this in areas of your interest. So we think we can set up like a database of topics with academics in Cambridge and in placements, and this might be useful to those of you planning to do some kind of summer research project. If you have any further ideas, certainly come and speak to us in the networking session after this talk. We'd be grateful to hear your ideas, but I think now we have a poll.
Another poll, I know.
Another poll, yes.
So exciting.
Joy. So this is the second poll, just to gauge your interest in these three options. Seems placements are quite popular. Ooh, the discussion group is winning. Yes, I'm very pleased you all chose the discussion group because that's my pet project.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Herbie.
Thank you.
I hope that gives you a good flavour of the ideas that we've got for the next couple of months and, well, the next year, really. I know Herbie's going to be very grateful that you all chose his discussion group. So just so we don't hear about it, I'm very grateful for you all doing that. This has been the first half, and yeah, hopefully you now have a good idea of what we've got in mind. But as we've been telling you over and over again, please come talk to us. Please come tell us things that you think are missing in your work, in your research, and in your studies. What could we do better? What could the university do better in particular? And how can we make your experience at Cambridge better? To start that off, has there been any questions about... Hello to that anonymous person, and thank you for being here. Do we have any questions for any of the speakers so far, including Emily? Or you can just put your hand up if you don't feel like typing. Please someone ask a question, because otherwise I'm going to stand here for the next 5 minutes like a numpty. I'm going to make you all stand in silence unless you do. Yes, thank you. Can I get a handy volunteer to run microphones around? Thank you very much. Yeah, if we take it up to the guy at the back.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, yes, okay. Hi, my name is Broderick. I'm a PhD in zoology here. So yeah, I want to say thank you for you guys for all being here and starting this. My question is I guess, as an initiative, as we really think about climate, as clearly we've seen with like COP26 and climate change, we see people who have answers, but don't necessarily want to do solutions. So I think it's really great looking at us, but I guess I also want to throw it back of how is this committee or how is Cambridge Zero or kind of this academy really trying to, I guess, change maybe some of the policies to actually make this stuff work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to speak because I'm the only one with a microphone and say that I think there's a real gap from a personal experience of someone that works in climate policy about hearing from kind of the people either on the ground doing field work or the kind of the scientists and the experts behind the scenes that are doing really cool, innovative stuff. And since coming here, I've been very fortunate to see all that cool stuff, but I'm very aware of how much it doesn't make it into kind of policy briefings and that sort of stuff. So we're just one of a number of initiatives that's hopefully just kind of bridging that gap and just exposing the really exciting things that are going on here to each other and to the world and to the people that are kind of, one of the ideas around the pairing program is that someone that might be thinking about kind of policy or economics can actually go and say, all right, well, what are the technical constraints that we're not thinking about? And utilize that when it comes to thinking around making change and impacting policy.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, go on. That's not on.
There we go. Thank you. So, I mean, it's a really good question. I think it's the sort of thing where we can really, I guess, provide some additional capacity or resources or things. So there's the Centre of Science and Policy in the university, and through that, actually, there's a number of students here who are part of my own CDT programme, and as part of that, the Centre for Science and Policy has come in and provided training courses, but then there's other opportunities. So some of the students who've been part of that programme have themselves, in different ways, actually got involved, whether it's in writing submissions for select committees or whether it's being involved with the local government here in terms of undertaking policy relevant projects. There are other students that have been involved there's something called POST, which is the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology, and they run internships, so that's another way of really actively getting involved. So that's one kind of level of things. But the other side of things is just helping the research, ensure that the research that you're doing is actually reaching a policy audience. So not necessarily you personally being involved in that, but making sure that it's incorporated in briefings, etc. There's just a host of opportunities that we could hopefully ensure that your voice is amplified more than it is at the moment in terms of the research that you're doing.
Maybe before you hand it back, I could get you to answer. They've asked about how we plan to differentiate the academy, but my answer to this would really be to piggyback on Cambridge Zero. So could you quickly explain how you think Cambridge Zero differentiates itself from some of the other climate initiatives in the university?
Well, actually, I think there's a few things from here. So first of all, there are a number of student societies, including a relatively new student climate society, and Cambridge Zero is very much supporting and encouraging those student societies. So what we want to do with the academy is something slightly different to a student society. So this is very much more about how there are particularly research-rooted activities where we can provide additional, I guess, training and resources, or the student symposium idea, or so slightly different activities to the sorts of things that would be done within a student society. In terms of other climate mitigation focused initiatives in the university or other activities that Cambridge Zero is undertaking, and the really key thing here is that this is about you, and this is about student-led activities that we're supporting rather than somehow the central university dictating. So this is very much allowing you to drive forward the agenda, but supporting you to do so.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Is there any other? Do you have any industrial partners or companies you're working with? Do you want me to answer that as well? No,
Would you like to?
I mean, not specifically as Cambridge Zero. Obviously, the university does. In terms of how we evolve that going forwards, I mean, if there was, one of the things that we could certainly look to do as part of the academy is look to increase the opportunities for internships. And so if that was something that was of interest to people, then we could certainly look to how we could develop that sort of program, or other ways of creating partnerships. I think that's
No, that's really helpful.
I think that's so any ideas that you have, send them in to the committee, and then we'll start to think how we can turn them into a reality. We recently, some of you might have come to it, we recently ran our second Green Careers Fair in the university. So this idea about connecting people up to, opportunities beyond the university is something that through Cambridge Zero we've certainly been trying to do. Do we want to take any?
Yeah, we've also got lots of other stuff to get through, so we will have a second Q&A in a sec. Just to do the other one, say, how can we help get Academy started? I mean, you are doing the main thing. You're here. That's absolutely fantastic, and thank you. And I guess kind of keep coming to stuff, keep talking to us. There'll be a mailing list sign-up link at the end. Please join that so you kind of know what's going on and you can come stuff. And yeah, just the more you want to be involved, the more you want to help get things started, the better. So if you've got ideas, if you've got stuff you want to do, let us know. If you want to run stuff yourself, kind of come talk to us. We can potentially help you do that. So yeah, come talk to us and let us know what it is you want to do, and we will help you do it. I saw something about alumni, and I just want to quickly say that we haven't thought about it yet, but it's definitely something I think as we move into our second year, we will start thinking about to make sure that those alumni connections are maintained and we're not kind of losing those connections that we form. How do you ensure the continuity of this initiative? Well, I guess that's one of the many benefits about having it under the umbrella of Cambridge Zero. They have a full-time staff that can help things and have been helping us with this event. But also, many of us are PhDs, and so hopefully we will manage to kind of have a sufficient number of multi-year program people here that it doesn't die after everyone goes on holiday over the summer. Thank you very much for that and for your questions. That was really helpful. We're now going to move on to the second part, which is to hear about some of the really exciting interdisciplinary work that's going on in Cambridge. And the first person I want to welcome is Dr. Sean Fitzgerald, who is the director of the Centre for Climate Repair. Can you please come up and take it away?
So before I talk about the Centre for Climate Repair, I want to tell you something rather personal. And that is 30 years ago, I was in your shoes as I felt like a lone ranger. I was doing a PhD in geothermal reservoirs. I was in the Department of Earth Sciences. I really, really cared about tackling climate change. But 30 years ago, it wasn't basically in the common language. So I was rubbing shoulders with lovely students. I really enjoyed their time and their stimulating conversation, but most of them were going off to work in the oil industry. And it didn't interest me one jot. And I cared about the climate, and I didn't have a network. So Emily talked about a movement and being really, really excited. I am so excited about this being a movement where actually like-minded students can get together and learn from each other and learn from others and actually create events. Because when I left the university after my PhD, yes, I knew about geothermal reservoirs from a technical point of view, but my skill set was pretty limited. All right, I hadn't been exposed to the wider issues about policy, certainly how you go and make stuff work in industry, even though I'd had a little bit of industry experience. I didn't get that breadth, that depth of experience beyond fluid mechanics and geothermal reservoirs, even though that was extremely valuable. So I'm so pleased that you're all here, and actually, whether you're here for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, as a PhD student perhaps, but whatever your timescale here is, I think this is an incredible initiative, and for it to be student-led, I'm really excited for you, and I wish I was 30 years younger, so that I could be enjoying this as well. So let me tell you about the Centre for Climate Repair. Centre for Climate Repair was set up around the same time as Cambridge Zero. I've been director for about 15 months, and it's we help really support one of the 6 strategic research initiatives of Cambridge Zero. So if you go onto the website of Cambridge Zero, you'll see there are 6 areas, and they're not mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive, because it's extremely difficult to construct a framework where every bit of research just lives in one bucket. But there's one bucket called carbon drawdown and climate repair. So the bit that we do doesn't fill that, but it plays a very large part in that within the university. And we call it the 3 Rs. The 3 Rs of our sort of research initiatives, and that we want to get deployed within a meaningful timescale, because time is running out. The first one is clearly to reduce emissions, but we're playing a supporting role in that, and a limited supporting role. I happen to have spent a fair amount of time in the built environment, so we're looking at energy reduction and therefore carbon reduction in the built environment. That's something that we can contribute to. Most of our activities are on the other 2 Rs. The second R is actually removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So if you just look at the current level, everyone thinks it's 420 parts per million carbon dioxide. It's not. It's more like 500 parts per million of carbon dioxide equivalent if you include all of the other greenhouse gases, like methane. And it's pretty ugly, and that's why we're seeing the temperatures that we are already seeing, and it's going to go beyond 1.5 degrees C. So, and it is. I mean, because if you go and look at all of the scenarios in IPCC, every one of them goes through 1.5 degrees C. They don't actually make that really clear. The most aggressive, ambitious scenario sees the 1.5 degrees C dipping back below 1.5 by the end of the century. But they all go through 1.5 degrees C. and therefore we don't think that's acceptable. We know it's not acceptable. We've got to reduce greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So that's the second R, and we're developing a number of approaches that are scalable. We're not interested in deck chairs on the Titanic and making it look nice in terms of, that sounds interesting. They've got to be scalable, and by scalable we mean if it doesn't have global potential of a gigaton of carbon dioxide equivalent per year, forget it. Go and find out the ones that can have that kind of scale. And then the third R is what we call climate repair, and that is, frankly, being extremely worried about the Arctic and other areas such as the Himalayas and the Antarctic. We are going to lose the Arctic, all right, if we just go certainly on any of the trajectories that are within the IPCC report at the moment. We are. So we've got to think about what can we develop, what can we do that is more ambitious than even the most ambitious laid out in the IPCC scenario. And that is to buy us some time. And it is about basically trying to reflect some of the radiation, especially from in the summer months, from the Arctic. Those technologies, those ideas have got to be developed so we have them to be able to deploy them. We don't have them at the moment. So do I absolutely know that they're going to work? No. Do I know that they're going to be safe? No. But we can't just accept a paucity of knowledge. We've got to go and develop that so that we as a society can then make meaningful decisions as to whether this is something we would like to do. I only received an email this evening from a group of fellow students from Finland. And they have said, Sean, we want to talk to you because we want to actually make a campaign within Finland to actually go and get on with this. Now, I think that's pretty ambitious because we don't know whether it's going to work yet. So, I think we need to go and get on the acceleration of the developing idea, the research, really, really in earnest. And the Centre for Climate Repair, that's what we're doing. We're a small centre based in Downing College from an administrative point of view. I have an office in the engineering department, but the key thing is there are amazing academics around the university that we are bringing together. So we're not trying to build an empire, we're trying to make sure that joining the dots across the university, all the incredible academics are able to know what each other are doing in these areas and then to forge projects. So talk to me afterwards about the specific projects. You can get involved by supporting some of this. We do have internships at the moment. We've just closed the advertisements and made the appointments for this coming summer. They're mainly sort of undergraduate ones that we were offering. Next year, I don't see why it should be undergraduates at all. It should be across the student body at large. And there will be other opportunities as well with some of the events that we hold. But we would love to engage and support Cambridge Zero and support you in terms of how you can help us, as well as us sort of helping you in the development of your skills. So I'll be around afterwards, and I'll certainly for some Q&A, but also after the event itself.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean. That was very, very interesting. And just to reiterate, I actually had heard of them, but didn't really know what the Centre for Climate Repair did until we reached out to Sean a little while ago. So hopefully this is kind of a taster of sort of new information and new exciting ideas that you can learn through the Postgraduate Academy. I now want to welcome Dr. Ellen Quigley, who works at the terrifyingly named Centre for the Study of Existential Risk, but she's going to come tell us about what she does and also how you can get involved and how it links to the rest of the university. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. Lovely to see you all here today. I think this is a great idea because it kind of formalizes some of the most useful bits of what I do in my job. I've actually bothered Sean in the past about what he refers to as methane, but that I call methane, in engagements with banks and so on and so forth. So it sounds like this is a way of making those sorts of asks and collaboration a lot more natural and finding ways of really pulling people together to get things done. So that's fantastic. So I'll just explain a bit how I got to working on the things that I'm working on, because I was supposed to be a historian, but then I got really freaked out about the climate crisis. I'm kind of assuming there are some others in the room who would be something else if we weren't in the situation that we're in. And then I was a community organizer for a few years, and then went back to university with the thought that I'd like to figure out what would be most useful in terms of addressing climate change. And then, of course, got into where the money goes. That's a big one. It's a big one for all of you in your own ways, in the various fields in which you touch on the financial sector. And basically, that's what I've been digging into for many years. So I'm a senior research associate at Caesar, which is very cool, multidisciplinary space. But I'm also the special advisor to the CFO of the university on responsible investment. So I bother banks and fund managers in collaboration with bursars and students and academics, and that's weirdly like half of my job. All kind of a bit of an accident. But it's been a very interesting way of working with people across the university in a very multidisciplinary way, because if you're going to go bother a bank, sometimes you need to be able to ask Sean about methane or methane, as I would say. So yeah, this kind of collaboration seems particularly useful given the complexity of the problems that we have to face. And if anyone wants to know a little bit more about cheeky questions you can be asking your bank, because that's huge, high impact area to look at, or cheeky questions to ask your future pension funds and so on and so forth, just let me know. And also if you want to know anything about the university's divestment commitments or anything else, those are also really fun topics to talk about. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I would question your definition of fun there, but I do appreciate the sentiment behind it. Hopefully this has given a kind of good overview of the different interdisciplinary and kind of university, college-wide activities that are going on that we're hoping to kind of link up with and provide better access for you, the postgraduate community. I know myself, for having bothered kind of various academics over the past year, how difficult it is to get them to respond, although they normally do, they're all just very busy. So the idea is to get more insight, more engagement, and more activity with all the corners of the university so that we can together make a bigger impact. We're going to return to more questions. You can ask them to me if you really want, but you probably want to hear from Ellen and Sean. So we'll do, again, either hands up or on the board. I saw maybe a hand, maybe not. No? Again, please ask questions, otherwise I will just natter on for 5 more minutes. Yes. Sorry, one down there. Is that right? No? Yeah, no, sorry. Oh, do you mind taking the microphone over to this gentleman?
He was handing all the mics.
Oh, sorry. Okay, cool.
I just want to ask, because you said you love talking about banks. So the first thing I did when I had to open a bank account is look at where the money goes. And it's not much money, unfortunately. But, so I just went for building society. Is that still good? Yeah. And then are there any other UK banks that you can recommend? Because I might want to open a second bank account once I have more money. Is there anything you can recommend?
Great question. Thank you for asking. My favorite topic, banks. So I don't like to recommend any particular bank, but building societies tend to be quite safe from a fossil fuel perspective. And then there are, specifically green banks like Triodos and so on and so forth that you can go for. I think I'll just explain why this is so important actually for a sec, because you kind of prompted it, so we can go there. So if you look at where new money for fossil fuel expansion or any other issues that you're worried about is coming from, it's overwhelmingly a debt story. So when we talk about divestment and so on and so forth. Divestment is a very important political movement, putting pressure on the fossil fuel industry. But people tend to be talking about shares in companies, and that's true for ESG or responsible investment as well. But actually, the new capital that's going into fossil fuel expansion is 90% debt, and a huge chunk of that comes back to a relatively small number of very large global banks, the names of which you know. So there are really good reports out there about this, looking at the kind of rankings of the banks that are contributing the most to direct financing of fossil fuels, and highly recommend looking at that. And if you do decide to switch banks, make sure to tell them why.
Do you mind just passing over to Sean, who could potentially tell us about some of the solutions for carbon removal that you are investigating?
Yes. Carbon removal from the atmosphere is non-trivial. And I mentioned that gigaton per year of carbon dioxide equivalent. Well, you can grow some trees, all right? But they take a while to grow, and actually there are current estimates that if you decide to do afforestation, which is what it's called, and where you're going anew at that, it can take 30 years before your activities that were involved in planting those trees actually start to get zeroed out by the growth. The biggest one is probably the role of the oceans. There's some, if you read around, there's some articles in New Scientist fairly recently. Artificial whale poo is where it goes. You'll be aware that if you've gone around various museums and seen artwork, that a long time ago, mariners would give depictions of what life at sea was like. And they would draw these amazing pictures where the surface of the ocean seemed to be teeming with life and whales aplenty. And of course, over the last 300 years, we've done a fantastic job at annihilating nearly all of the whale population. So certain species are at less than 1% of what they once were. And what has been found is that whales did a fantastic job of some of the species of feeding at depth and defecating at the surface. The reason being it's kind of difficult to defecate when you've got 2 miles of water above you, all right? So the pressure is too large. So they have to come to the surface not only to breathe, but to poo. And therefore, what they were doing was bringing nutrients from depth up to the surface. And as a result of that fertilization done by the whales on the surface, you had lots of phytoplankton growth, which then led to zooplankton. You then have krill and fish. And you had an incredible biosystem where whales were, large numbers thereof. And we then took that out, the whale population to a large extent. And normally what you might expect is when you remove a predator, then the food that it was feeding on goes riot. It didn't. Actually, it fell through the floor because actually the fertilization mechanism, they are the biological pump for bringing those nutrients from depth to the surface. So one of the biggest project that we've got that we're trying to work on and coordinating across multiple oceanic research institutions is, what is the scale potential for this? How do you go, and over how many decades will it take to bring the whale population back so that they're back playing their role and that the oceans are then regenerated into a biosystem. So you've got the biomass within the ocean itself of a fully functioning ocean, and then of course the flux associated with that, because whales die and you get fluxes from the surface to the depth. There's a flux potential as well. So that's the biggest one. Second one, we're doing something similar on the role of giant kelp in the surface waters of the deep ocean. Interestingly, that's a little less controversial because that's not necessarily trying to add nutrients to the surface as aggressively as some people might think regarding the marine biomass regeneration. There's been some historical work over the last 10, 15 years that has been in the headlines and has caught bad press because it wasn't done in a really scientific, careful, thought-through way about actually what's really at stake is trying to regenerate the oceans. It was just more of a cowboy chemistry kind of attitude that some people thought it was anyway, and that's caught some negative press, whereas the role of giant kelp hasn't got that baggage. But interestingly, the role of giant kelp will run into the same issues, because when giant kelp from the surface waters, if you've got buoys and rafts to support that, sinks to the ocean, it's not just taking carbon down, it's taking nutrients. So we're going to have a nutrient problem also with the role of giant kelp. And the third project that we are still working on raising funds for on the greenhouse gas removal is actually methane from the atmosphere. Methane, obviously the second most important greenhouse gas. And although it's at very low concentrations, We do need to try and get to grips with it because it's going to get an ever-increasing proportion of our problem as you get melting permafrost and things like that. So we're expecting that to become a bigger thorn in our side, and therefore we've got to go and develop those approaches. And we've got some ideas within the engineering department and some colleagues from UCL and actually Gran Canaria looking at the role of photocatalysts and developing those. It's a really exciting area. We're still working on funding for that. For those are the three big areas that we've identified for greenhouse gas removal at the moment.
Thank you very much. Do you want to do that? Oh, go to the back. Sorry. I think we've done these questions. Yeah. Sorry, Tish.
If there are not any more questions, I just wanted to add 2 more points to 2 questions which were asked before. So the first one was a question about how most of us are are here only for 1 year. So the thing is, a lot of us are also PhD students. For example, I'll be continuing on for a PhD. But also the point is that if you look at a large number of postgraduate students at the university, most of them are master's students. So the majority of them are master's students who will be here for 9 months or only 1 year. So the idea is that we want to make sure that even if you're a master's student, you still can contribute, you still can come up with ideas and tell us or execute them yourself. So that's the idea, and you can also still get involved in the steering committee even if you're here only for a year. And secondly, another question was about how the Postgraduate Academy will be different from other societies on campus. So the thing is, when it comes to other societies, you meet people during networking events, and you have good ideas, you want to do something about it, but you don't know where to start or where to go to do them. So the Postgraduate Academy and Cambridge Zero is the medium to do that it is. So Emily was actually talking very well about it. So she gave a clear idea about how if you want to do this, that this will be the platform for you. So I was talking a little bit about sustainability issues. So if you actually want to come together as a team and sit and write policies to present to the university and come up with a universal policy for all departments and colleges as a whole. So that's something which is very much feasible, right, through the Postgraduate Academy and Cambridge Zero. So this will really be a platform where you can make things happen and actually make it become reality. So yeah, those are the 2 points that I wanted to highlight. And that brings us to an end.
Well, there's one final question that maybe you could...
Is there a way to show the question?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry if I've been ignoring all your questions. Maybe, do you want to start with the top and we can try and quickly work our way down?
Yeah, so how will the Academy ensure it engages with a diverse representation of the university student body? So firstly, like I said, we have a lot of events coming up and it will be across departments, and we don't have any restrictions as to who can come up with events or who can come up with ideas or topics. So it's really open, and like we said, we really want to hear from you. So those are 2 different ways where we are trying to bring in more representation from different departments and not just keeping it STEM specific or specific to only policies, etc. And also, like I said, bringing in speakers from international communities, marginalized communities, I think is really a way to even cater to students on campus who are also coming from the global south, for example. So it's really a way to connect with students on campus, students internationally, because that's also something which we are looking at, where we are looking at having collaborations with universities across the world, right? A lot of universities from global south, the developing countries, to see what perspectives they can bring. So these are a few ways that we have thought about, but of course we are open to ideas from you as well. Can postdocs join the Academy? Yeah. Like I said, there is no set eligibility criteria to join the Academy, so we will be very much open to postdocs as well. Oh, any suggestions for sustainable travel? I think both of you can add some points on that.
I'm going to say this as somebody who never plans ahead, so just acknowledge that. But if you want to travel in Europe, if you plan ahead, which I never do, you can actually end up with cheaper tickets than if you combine the cost of a flight plus getting to and from the airport on either end. So with Eurostar, which is the main way to get into Europe, although there are some fun, ferries and stuff like that as well. Anyway, if you book ahead, it can actually be quite affordable. So it's an incentive for those of us who could stand to think ahead a bit to do so. Anything you want to add there?
Yes. So the most sustainable thing to do is to reduce the amount you travel. Okay, so I mean, it's just, I know it's the blinding obvious, but actually just, and that's perhaps one thing that the last 2 years has helped teach us. I'm not saying that we need to be quite like we were in the last 2 years, but actually how much do we need to? So that's the first thing. And the second thing, I've looked at this in terms of just not about how great my brain is, but trying to learn from others. Oxfam, they're an organisation that I do respect, and they have a travel policy which is as follows, that if you can travel within 24 hours to your, let's say you've got a meeting or a destination, by train, then you do so. All right, even if it takes you the full 24 hours. And if you can't, at that point, they'll say, well, okay, we're going to allow you to fly. But the reduction that they get as a result of having this, if you could travel and do it in 24 hours on a rail journey, is amazing. So those are the two things that I would add.
Just to be very pragmatic from a student point of view as well, I also wanted to add, because you've talked about affordability being a limiting factor, from a research and student point of view, if you're traveling for something that's to do with university, do talk to your departments and colleges and particularly specify that you want to travel by train for environmental reasons. I know from experience in my college that they are trying to reduce their whole environmental impact. That includes scope 3 emissions, that includes travel, and therefore they have been or are working on policies to say that if you can travel by train, even if it's more expensive, they will fund that difference. So reach out to them, tell them that you need maybe a bit more money, but you're doing it for the environment. And if they push back, go talk to your green reps, come talk to us, shout about it, and try and make some noise that they're not doing what they should be doing. I'm just going to go, sorry, before we go.
I want to add to this.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I believe that hitchhiking is very sustainable. And so hitchhiking, and though it is kind of a personal, you need to personally be ready to give up your comfort to do something for the environment, and most people are not. And it's also a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's also quite unsafe depending upon where you are, so be careful before you try anything.
Hitchhiking is surprisingly safe, and most people think it's not safe, those who haven't done it. So I recommend it.
So, I mean, as I am just going to add a comment to that. I can't let that go. Look, when I was an undergraduate, I did go hitchhiking, and it was a lot of fun, and I met some amazing people. But it isn't 100% safe, and it is something that you do need to be mindful of. And I speak from personal experience, so I still remember I got a lift on the M25. I was coming to Cambridge, jumped into the car, and my feet were really muddy because I was stood on the side. And he said, "Oh, well, you can't have your feet that muddy. Can you clean them on this?" And there was a 6-inch blade, the door was already locked, and there were about 3 other guys there. And I thought, oh my goodness me. And they were off to court for one of the guys in there for GBH. And they told me this. So do you think I was feeling particularly comfortable? So look, I'm not saying that and I was okay, but just, I said I'd give you some personal anecdotes of this over the course of this evening, and I still remember that. It was quite chilling. So just be careful, all right? So I like the idea of hitchhiking, but it isn't necessarily 100% safe. Think about the issues first.
I was not expecting this to go in this direction, but that was very insightful. Thank you very much.
I also have hitchhiking stories.
Well, I was going to ask you to finish on this final question about your perspective of taking money from the fossil fuel companies to fund renewable energy research. If you want to make some sort of connection to your own hitchhiking experience, that's up to you.
Let's go for fossil fuels. So I just want to say first, this is my personal opinion, not that of the university, not for anybody I work for. And I'm just going to lay out the things that I would want a fossil fuel company to do before I would ever feel comfortable taking money from them for any reason, because I think that there is legitimacy that's conferred upon a company by working with them if you're an institution like ours. So here's what fossil fuel companies would have to do. By the way, there are no fossil fuel companies currently that meet this standard, so I'm just putting that out there. Number one, you'd have to no longer be a member of trade associations that are actively lobbying against sensible climate legislation. Again, no fossil fuel company meets that standard yet. No new fossil fuel infrastructure being built, pipelines, etc. No. And then the third would be no more exploring for new reserves. So these are things that we know are what are required to align with even the International Energy Agency's 1.5 degree scenario, which has some flaws that many of us could probably point out. But even to meet that standard, you have to do at least those three things. So that would be my answer.
So I really like that answer. The one thing that scares me is, from a technical point of view, is that if you get serious about carbon capture sequestration and the sequestration bit, the companies that have got the know-how to go and figure out how to go and put carbon dioxide into old oil and gas reservoirs under the North Sea are those people who've been mining the stuff, oil and gas, out of those oil and gas reservoirs. So it's a conundrum. And to say that we're never going to take any money off the companies who've got the technical capabilities to support that, I think is a challenge. But, you know, would I take money from them today on this is me personally, you know, those criteria that Ellen laid out, you know, it's those sorts of criteria that I think we need to be clear about, to say we value capabilities, and actually whether they live in a fossil fuel company or elsewhere, I don't think we even need to be clear about that. We value those skills because they're going to be necessary if you want to develop that technology. But to be really clear that we can't have the status quo. The flip side, I mean, in terms of just companies right now, we've got somebody, you know, or it's Boris Johnson going to Saudi Arabia talking about, you know, opening the taps further on from Saudi Arabia. Noise over the last week about even new drilling in the North Sea, because we have this transition issue. Whilst we've now, in the last 3 weeks, it's, you know, laser focus about security of supply, and I don't mean physical security necessarily. I mean political security and about what we should be doing. And we've got to figure out this pathway. I still don't think it gets anybody off the hook, but I just think that this is hence this kind of environment to be, you know, which I didn't have 30 years ago, to talk about these issues and think about these broader contexts about what is the right thing to do. So I'm not going to give you an answer. I'm not going to answer the question. I'm going to probably leave you with more questions than the single question that was there. So I think there are lots of questions that need to be asked, which are behind this.
I think that's a very good question. But the thing is that at the end of the day, Postgraduate Academy comes under the umbrella of Cambridge Zero, like we had mentioned. And Cambridge Zero and a lot of events that have been organized before have been responded with a lot of strong emotions. So it's not something new. It has been something that we have been seeing before. So we do feel like it's something that we have already tackled or seen before. So it's not something that's new. But yeah, this is also something which we have been thinking about, because even when we were sharing information about this event online, there was a little bit apprehension, because during previous events, there were certain societies or communities which were trying to make the events not happen. So we were a little bit apprehensive. So we are also actively thinking about how we can still go about events, still have gatherings without obstructions. So this is something which we have been actively debating and thinking about.
something just come into this small mind of mine. The answer to that question, by the way, there's something else I wanted to mention, is that there is a group called Sibella in the university that grapples with these questions, and I'm very, very grateful that there are lots of people who are learned and wise that think about the issues about where you take money, and students are involved in that. So in terms of if you care about these things, it's a way of actually getting involved. So it's just making sure you understand or know who those students are. So you can actually play a role in helping figure out our pathway as a student body. So it's a really fantastic thing that the university has done.
Thank you very much to everyone that's put up a question. I think we got through all of them, but if we didn't, I apologize. And I particularly want to thank Sean and Ellen for coming and answering all the questions and talking to us about this. If I could get everyone just to give them a short round of applause. The final thing to do is ask you to, my slide deck has stopped working, join our mailing list through this QR code. And then also to join us outside, there are some snacks and drinks, and I really hope that Ellen and Sean are going to stick around for a little bit so you can bug them some more, or alternatively, please come bug some of the members of the committee who are down at the front, myself and Deja included, about thoughts, what you have in mind, what you're currently lacking, and anything else that you want to do. Thank you again.